It's fine. It's all fine. The markets will be fine. We're going to go over the crypto news on what's bringing down the market and if it's all over, red or over. Now, before we dive in, nothing is financial advice. You can do your own research, and these are just opinions and our research. So we've got a very nasty site initially on CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap. You can just see it's a sea of red, and although there's a little bit of green here, in the last 24 hours, it's been very, very, very brutal. Also, when we have a look at Messari, it's a whole lot of just bad news. It's DeFi, hack, losses, DPEGs. It's all over here in terms of liquidations. We've got bear chain upset, and we have Solana bull party ends. So this is a very good indicator of the fear in the market is extremely high, and people are entering that apathetic stage. We've got fear and greed at 21, and ever since the 10th of October, it has been brutal. We've got $1.35 billion in 24-hour liquidations, which is very sizable, and this typically means a bit of a reset. So after these massive liquidations, we get a little bit of reset, and we tend to go higher, but more on that in a little bit. A lot of Bitcoin has been sold over the last 30 days, but also have a look. This has happened before in this cycle as well. It's not a singular event that could mean a top. Bitcoin ETFs, you want to bookmark this. All the links are below. You can see there's been a mass exodus. All the red numbers are all negative outflows that have happened since the 29th of October. And when you see this start to move, you could also price in some further downtrend typically as well. Bitcoin needs to stay with its 1 week chart over the SMA 50 in order to be still in this bull market. If it closes below, it has, based on history, it's been the end of that particular bull cycle. Jason Bazzino points out that this has happened a couple of times in this cycle already, but we could see a 30% drop. I'm not expecting it like that, but if this does happen, it would be very, very brutal, and you do want to hedge it towards downside, of course. So if you start to think that this could happen, you may consider some sort of hedge plays or shorting at the right time if the technical analysis looks good. And we'll cover some technical analysis in a little bit. Stream finances, which is something I've never covered before. It's a DeFi dApp. They've lost approximately $93 million. And it wasn't an exploit, but it's like an external fund manager. So this is one reason why I just kind of talk about Camino, and I don't want to go outside of this to a far riskier area, because otherwise you're going to have this XUSD like a lot of people already had, and then all of a sudden it's $1.26 down to 31 cents, and it's supposed to be stable. Now, big reason why everything is so doom and gloom and hard is because the government in the US is still shut down, and it's not likely to open anytime soon. We've got some good odds that it will end maybe within the next few weeks, but more so towards the end of the month. Ideally, it happens before Thanksgiving. A lot of people are not living in the US, so we'll make this kind of clear. The federal people that work, airports as an example, and police and healthcare and government and intelligence, and all these departments, they do not get paid. So we're coming to Thanksgiving, the biggest holiday of the year in the US, and they're not getting any pay because of the right versus left shenanigans in the US. So this means you can't open a company in the US. You can't get your tax file number, as an example, and it just stops everything. However, another reason why the cycle isn't in my opinion, is because we haven't seen this interest come into Bitcoin. And I do believe that it is possible to have a cycle end. So it is possible that a cycle could go through its phase and then go bearish without having this peak. I believe would be the first time, but it's unlikely because I believe the powers that be, the whales and the OGs, would try to align this and force a narrative to make people come in. And thus far, they haven't. Per this, in terms of Bitcoin and crypto in general in non-emerging markets. However, we've also got, in 36 days, we've got the next FOMC meeting where we are expecting, once again, a rate cut that takes us down to 3.5% as an interest rate. There is one sector doing well, though. So if you start to spot narratives in here, this could outperform, and that is privacy. So Zcash has been leading the pack. It's overtaken Litecoin. Litecoin is a proof of work chain, and it's in previous cycles is referred to kind of like Bitcoin is gold and Litecoin is silver. I don't like Litecoin. I've been underwater on Litecoin since 2017. However, it does have a privacy aspect, but you can see other ones start to kind of jump up. So if you have some of these tokens, then you may want to consider taking some profits. But that's, of course, not financial advice. It's just this is where a little bit of money goes when the narrative is down, but there's something that people want to claw onto. The money rotates into a narrative, which right now is privacy. Now let's have a look at some TA. This is related to the Satoshi settings, so you can work it out. We've got a tutorial link below, and I've covered it before. Essentially, we've got a couple of lines here, and if I turn off this one here, what we're looking for is when this goes, it only works on the 2-hour chart, but when this goes red, you would short, and when it goes green, you would long, and then when it flicks red again, you would close that position. If we flick on the 33 as well, this will give us a little bit better in terms of entries. And if we can enter again as an example, like for example, here we'd be more concerned with it going up at this point because both things went green. One typical rule is if it's a downtrend, you wouldn't long when the overall trend is down, but there's a bit of green pushing it up. But what I want to point out here is from the moment this went red, you wait for the candle to close. With Bitcoin in the last 6 days, it's down 9%, which is considerable for Bitcoin. And we can see the same thing with Ethereum. So it's not that we're wanting it to go down. It's just that this TA tool is demonstrating quite clearly that it's working. And so I do want you to kind of check this and put it into your arsenal. Sui has not performed very well at all. We won't really worry about all the fibs right here. But as an example, it's down considerably from its all-time highs, and it's just fallen off. So whereas the support level, you can work that out yourself. I'm just referring to just keeping an eye on using the Satoshi settings because it does work like 66 to 80% of the time. It's very, very profitable. With Solana, it's been absolutely brutal. We've done 18% or thereabouts. And with Solana in general, what I want to point out is where this is on the 4-hour chart, but the RSI down here, this is completely oversold. So these are typically the times when you want to buy because you get a reversal. You can see bought, reversed, bought, reverse, and right now we're in the same zone. We had a very brief period here as well, but this is on the 4-hour chart, and you can see it each time. These are the fearful things. Now, if it is all over, then why when Solana went all the way down here and ETH was like tanking as well, why wasn't it all over then? I do believe we have more rate cuts coming and liquidity will come in. The US just has to open up its government again. And I think that's something really, really important to keep in mind, that dips can be for buying, but you need to have a bit of a system to do it. Because we've managed to lose the 0.5 level fib, so we're coming down to where we're likely to rebound of this point. However, if you think it could go lower, what you can do is use Meteora. So go in with a bid ask all the way down as far as you think it could go. And then as soon as you start to see confirmation as it bounces off, maybe checking out the Satoshi settings to see a green wave form up again, then take all that, because a bid ask means it goes like this. You're buying more as it gets lower, then you flick it out, and then you sell all the way up. So you can be selling on the way up here and potentially up 160, 150%. Although I don't think we're going to get this low. I think we're going to come down here. So I've gone and signed some USDC to get some fees at this point. Won't do exceptionally well, but it's far safer than going leverage right now when we don't have a clear direction in the market. And most traders are getting wiped out, as we can see by the liquidations. Ethereum is in the similar kind of situation. It had its very, very low RSI here on the daily very recently, and we're also entering into this same kind of period. Now, it could go down for a couple of days. It is a possibility, and it could be the complete all over. It could be the worst, most unexciting, uneventful bull market ever. It's just not my expectation. One thing with Ethereum, though, is it doesn't have to move too hard to get above this cloud, which is what you want to do. Whereas if we have a look at this one here and we change it to the daily chart, unfortunately, we have to build all the way up here to get through the cloud in order to be kind of safe again at 206. So we need to move quite a bit in order to be okay, like 26%, as opposed to here, it's just a move of maybe 15%, something like that. Now let's have a look at some other tokens that I've been talking about with Telegram and also on Twitter. And these are more riskier plays, but the things that I like the look of. So Meta, as an example, with MetaDAO, we'll do some more dedicated videos on this because I really think the more and more content I make, the more I realize sometimes I do things to try and help an ecosystem, but at the same time, the tokenomics are just not ideal, and I can rate them, but not everyone can. So I want to stick with something which has much better in terms of tokenomics, or fairer as an example. Now with Meta as an example, whenever something goes up like this, it tends to give up its gains very quickly. And we've seen this here and here and here. And of course, it's gone higher and higher because it is a strong community, it is a strong token, and MetaDAO has a new ICO launchpad. But as an example, this is a place where I was DLMMing really, really aggressively. As soon as it broke this trend, this is a good indication that the Katoshi settings are red. And so I'm far more looking at the idea of coming all the way down. And I have a bid ask and spot markets that come all the way down to get those fees, even though we haven't got down here, just in case. And if that capital remains there as SOL or USDC and doesn't generate yield, then that's okay. On a good day, this is earning 1% per day in fees. Of course, you have a permanent loss until you get above where your entry is. So now we're starting to look up. We've had these little green surges, which is normal to have, and I'm not going to call it up yet. What we're normally looking at is the curve coming down, and as it starts to round up, we tend to go green. Sometimes you go green briefly, like this one, and then red again as well, though. So you have to keep that in mind. But I have a feeling that this is going to start to come up again and get some attention, but it may take a month or so to get more attention, unsure. Another token out there that's got a lot of good attraction right now is OR. When you have a look at OR versus SOL, it's doing really, really well. However, you're probably wanting to know what it is doing in terms of USDC. But nevertheless, you can see we're green here. The trend is good when it's paired with SOL if you want to DLMM with SOL. Otherwise, if it's with USDC, it's a little bit more flat. It could once again come all the way down and lose a lot of these gains. But I have a feeling that there's enough attraction on this. I've done a tutorial on this as well. There's enough attraction with this that it probably won't do that because it's a nice meme narrative of store of value on the Solana blockchain and it's fair launch. So this is not technically looking really, really strong here, but overall, compared to the tokens out there, it's something that has more of my attention as well. Hype, you can clearly see, has just gone straight down as well. And that is another perfect example of how Katoshi settings look. So why isn't this bull run over? Well, crypto is far more volatile than the traditional markets. But when the Nasdaq's at all-time highs, it's got a small dip, but it's in that all-time high level. And we've got the S&P 500 also an all-time high level. Something kind of has to implode a little bit here, and an implosion will come, but crypto is a little bit too premature for it to be all over Red Rover, in my opinion. Having said that, when you make some decent amount of gains, not financial advice, but it's a pretty smart idea to take some profits. You never want to be, just risking it all, just trying to grow it so aggressively that you can lose it all, because then you just end up on Twitter just saying how you made $1 million and then lost $1 million. So those are my thoughts. I think the cycle is still well and truly going to continue. However, this kind of bump could mean that it gets a little bit boring for the rest of the year, with ideally an exception around breakpoint. And then maybe people take some realizations in terms of profits for their tax bill at the end of December. And then we can continue into next Q2 or Q1 and Q2 next year. But we have to wait and see. So let me know your thoughts. But in the meantime, I'm really suggesting that you go ahead and you actually use Katoshi settings. The tutorial is below. One final reminder as well, if you're using Kamino or anything like that, Drift or any borrow lend protocol, make sure you're not going to be liquidated. As an idea, if you have a whole lot of SOL and you've borrowed USDC against it, I would prefer to not be liquidated anywhere down to like $91. Not that I'm expecting to go there, it's just be my preference. And also, if you ordered a Solana Seeker, make sure you've paid for your shipping so that you get this, because I have a feeling that this is going to have quite a bit to do with making Solana more relevant. And also grab yourself a case. You can get one from Solid Store. Link is below.